Hey, welcome back everyone. Before we start, I just want to thank you all for bearing with my voice. My seasonal allergies are definitely acting up, but I did not want to skip this week because I promised weekly episodes. So I'm showing up, sniffles and all. Back to our conversation. I hope you enjoyed our deep dive into masks conversation, both facial and the emotional ones in episode 2. Now, let's keep peeling back the layers of our identity, this time through the lens of career. Who are we now when it comes to our careers? How much of our identity is still tied to what we do? How much our career paths shaped our identity? Is it a career, calling, or just a job? Are we our job title? Let me ask you something. Is your career still aligned with who you have become in your 40s? Or has it stopped feeding your soul, your lifestyle, or both? Can you picture yourself doing the same thing you are doing now for the next 20 years? By the time we reach our 40s, every woman carries a story about how work has shaped not just our days, but the woman we have become. Today's conversation is about how work has shaped our identity and what happens when that identity no longer fits. Some of us built our careers out of dreams, some out of necessity, some out of sheer survival. Some of us chased passion, some chased stability. Some of us stumbled into jobs that turned into decades. Some of us had to carve out space in places where women weren't always welcomed. And some of us took what we could, not because it was our dream, but because it was what was available. In our 40s, the question isn't just how high can I climb? It is, was the ladder ever leaning on the right wall? This episode isn't about regret. We are not here to rehash or rewrite the past. We can't. So let's not waste our breath there. Instead, let's ask, has the life I built still fit the woman I have become? This isn't a conversation about judgment. It is about awareness. Because the moment we shift into judgment, I should have done this. Why didn't I do that? We lose the lens of understanding. We are not here to blame our younger selves. We are here to observe, to go deeper, to maybe connect a few dots we hadn't seen before. Whatever path we have walked, we built it with the tools, the knowledge, and the strengths we had at the time. That deserves to be honored, not doubted. And yes, I know how easy it is to fall into self-criticism, to focus only on what we did not achieve. But that lens is so narrow. It misses the quiet resilience, the small victories, the sheer effort it took just to keep going. However your career path unfolded, each step was real. Each decision made sense in the moment. Even if, looking back, some parts feel distant from who you are today. Before we dive into our career reflections today, I want to offer a soft reminder. Let's revisit where we started in episode 1, our conversation on identity. We talked about the invisible forces that shape our identity. Forces that existed before long we ever picked a job title. Our health, family, the opportunities we were given or denied, the cultural expectations we carried loudly or silently. What I'm really trying to say is this. We did not all start from the same place. We were not given the same map or even the same shoes to walk these paths. So when we look back at our career choices, whether they were survival moves, passion leaps, or something in between, Let's do it with compassion, not criticism. We do not all start from the same place. Some of us were raised with options. Some of us were handed expectations. Some were told to dream. Others were told to be realistic. Some had access. Others had obstacles. And all of that, our health, families, culture, resources, it shaped how we approached and ended up in our careers. So today, let's look back with context. Look back with compassion. Look back at the whole puzzle, not the pieces. And now, let's take a moment to reflect on our conversation from episode 2 about the masks we wore for our career. Many of us wore masks at work without even realizing it. The quiet one who held back brilliant ideas and never shared. The strong one who always said yes. The perfect one who over-delivered to feel worthy. The tireless one who carried 2 full-time jobs, one paid, one invisible, and unpaid as a mother. Sometimes those masks helped us survive, but survival isn't the same as alignment. And today, if we gently sit the mask down, how we would be feeling about our careers. Let's get to today's conversation with something bold. If you still like what you do every day, you are incredibly lucky. Many women I talk to in their 40s are just tired. Tired of the grind, tired of pretending the job still fits, tired of surviving the week just to collapse into a weekend full of laundry, groceries, sport games, and maybe a 20-minute nap that gets interrupted halfway through. And yet, our careers are so deeply tied to how we see ourselves and how the world sees us. But what happens when that thing that once gave us purpose now feels like a cage? In our 20s, we were what we did. In our 20s, our jobs became our identities. We led with our titles. I am in finance. I am a nurse. I am home with kids. The title wasn't just conversation. It was currency. A shortcut to value in a world that constantly asked, what do you do? For those of us stepping into the workforce, we were wide-eyed and ready to prove ourselves. And almost immediately, we learned one thing. Working as a woman isn't the same as just working. No matter where you are in the world or what career you are in, especially if you are in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We had to be competent, but not cold. Ambitious, but not intimidating. Confident, but never too much. We were expected to say yes. Expected to be agreeable and pleasant. Expected to earn our seat even when we were already overqualified. Expected to work twice as hard to be seen as half as capable. And in return, a paycheck that never quite reflected our worth. The wage gap is still alive and kicking. So, we learned how to shrink ourselves, how to soften our voice in the meetings, how to preface every idea with, sorry, this might be silly, but we learned how to survive, not just the job, but the culture. I had a heart-shattering experience about the culture that will stay with me forever. Along my career path, I once stepped into a role previously held by a man. Not long after, a woman on my team, also an immigrant like me, remarked that she wished a man were still in the position. Honestly, what broke my heart wasn't just the inappropriate comment. It was that it came from another woman, someone who on the surface shared parts of my story, a foreigner woman. You would expect her to be more compassionate and understanding of the obstacles I had to overcome to get there. But no. It made me realize how deep the biases run, even among those of us who should be allies. So with all that, we started to shapeshift, to become who the workplace needed us to be, instead of who we actually were. We wore our titles like armor, not because they told our full story, but because they gave us a place to belong, a way to justify our worth. Then came our 30s, and the focus shifted to proving we could do it all. We climbed ladders, built businesses, balanced babies on our hips while answering emails at midnight. We said yes again and again. We worked late, we burned out, but we kept going because somewhere along the way we were told this was the cost of being a successful woman. And somewhere in that grind, we stopped asking why we were doing it. We spent most of our awake time working, yet somehow work became just a task, not a purpose. And without realizing it, something deeper happened in those decades. Our energy shifted. We were pushed into our masculine energy. Structure, prove, achieve. Because that's what the world rewarded. But in doing that, many of us had to silence our feminine energy, the part of us that moves with intuition, that values rest, softness, creativity, and flow. By the time we hit our 40s, many of us began to feel it, the imbalance, the depletion. There is a natural balance between the feminine and the masculine energy within each of us. But only you know how your career path may have thrown that balance off. By 40s, the quiet voice inside us starts saying, there is more than this. There has to be. So here we are, looking back not just on the careers we built, but on the energy we gave away to build them. Let's be honest, career conversation is more complicated for women than it is for men. Because biology, caregiving, and the reality of reproduction places a disproportionate weight on women's shoulders. Careers weren't built in a vacuum. While building companies, hospitals, classrooms, businesses, some of us were simultaneously building homes and families. We were expected to be fully present at work and fully present at home, without missing a beat, without showing the cracks. And if we chose just one, career or caregiving, there was judgment either way. You are too ambitious. You are too selfless. Never quite the right balance according to someone else's scorecard. But here is the thing. Only we know the cost of everything we carried. Only we get to decide what we carry forward. We were taught the ambition was admirable, but only if it stayed quiet and non-threatening. But ambition itself is not the problem. It is beautiful to want. It is powerful to build. It is sacred to strive for a life that feels aligned with our soul. Maybe ambition now looks different than it did at 25. Maybe it's less about chasing and more about choosing. Maybe it's about creating lives that finally fit us, not just lives that impress others. Bringing it full circle back to today's conversation. Who am I now in my 40s? Who am I now after decades of navigating ambition, caregiving, self-sacrifices, and survival. And who am I when I set down the titles, the masks, the awards, the unspoken expectations? Maybe success isn't a ladder anymore. Maybe success is a doorway, one we open when we finally choose ourselves. Because our careers were chapters, but we are the whole story. And now, standing here in our 40s, we have full permission to realign the next chapters in work, in ambition, in identity, so that they feel like they finally belong to us. And maybe now we begin asking different questions. Not just what do I do, but who has my career shaped me to become? What do I want to reclaim? How do I build something now that honors all of me, not just the part that could perform? As I shared in previous episodes about my career path, I started as an engineer. I liked solving problems. I was good at math. Systems made sense. Equations had answers. And honestly, I was good at it. But somewhere along the way, I realized something. I like dealing with humans more than systems and machines. And don't forget the lens that my lifelong health issues had added to my identity. The complexity of people, emotions, personalities, power dynamics, it fascinates me. So when I moved to the US, I pivoted. I left engineering and shifted toward management. People became the work. I started leading teams, aligning departments, helping solve messes that couldn't be fixed with formulas. It felt like a better fit, a truer version of me. And now, well, here I am, in my 40s and recording this series. Between you and me, I believe I might be a phenomenal writer in the future. A different kind of problem solver, which is exactly why I'm here now, talking to you, recording this series. Testing that theory in real time before I crown myself into a best-selling author. As you can see from my career path, I have pivoted a few times. These pivots are out of a deep commitment to realigning with who I am and what truly matters to me. I believe career pivots aren't setbacks. They are courageous steps toward authenticity and growth. Remember back in episode 1 when I told you my one-word label is truth walker? Well, you can see I wasn't kidding. I have been walking through that truth every step of the way. So many women feel guilt for wanting a change. Like pivoting means you failed. But here is the truth. Pivoting isn't giving up. Pivoting is getting honest. Sometimes we stay too long because we have invested too much. We stay for the title, the benefits, the safety. But deep down, we know something doesn't fit anymore. That's not failure. That is awareness. And let's also acknowledge some of us did not get to choose. We took the job that paid. We stayed for the insurance. We said yes because someone needed us at home. And still, we built something and it shaped us just as much as we shaped it. We introduce ourselves by what we do. But when that disappears, in a layoff, in a pause, in a pivot, we can feel lost. So here is the question. Who are we without the title? Who are we without the identity that says productive or valuable or busy? Because if the title is gone and we still exist, then maybe the title was never the whole truth. If you are unhappy in your work, you are not alone. You are not lazy. You are not broken. You are not failing. You are just tired of living in a system that doesn't nourish you, and you deserve to imagine something different. Now that we have survived all of that, do we keep going in the same direction, or do we pivot towards something that actually reflects the woman we have become? And again, maybe success isn't a ladder anymore. Maybe success is a doorway. Maybe it is a window we open to let the fresh air in. And maybe, just maybe, the best career move isn't up. It is inward. I want to take a moment to go deeper with you and reflect on my career journey. Not just to revisit the titles and roles, but to take you through the paths I've walked, the pivots I've made, and the truths I've uncovered along the way. The choices I made, the ones that were made for me, and the quiet talk between survival, ambition, and purpose. And with all that said, I'll be real with you. I haven't reached my full career potential. Let's just call it what it is, full disclosure. And it wasn't just one thing that got in the way. It was my health, those days when my body refused to cooperate, and all I could do was lie still while the world carried on without me. It was the challenges of starting over, rebuilding a life in a new country in the middle of my life as an immigrant. And it was the hard truth of being a woman in the industries I loved, where I had to fight to be heard, prove my value over and over, and work twice as hard just to be seen as equal. But somewhere in that quiet struggle, I made a promise to myself. Whatever career I pursue, whatever path I walk, there is one rule. If I can start the day without pain, if I have the strength to show up, I will be grateful for that opportunity. I won't let frustration or comparison steal the light from my day. At least most of my days. I'm being brutally honest. And sure, it is easy to say that, but living it every day is hard. Not every day is smooth. Not every decision is clear. But if I can wake up, work, create, connect, that to me is success. Because I no longer measure my life against someone else's story. I measure it against my own. The days I thought I couldn't keep going, and I did anyway. And maybe that's what our 40s are really about. Not just dreaming bigger, but holding deeper gratitude for how far we have come and everything we carried to get here. There were times I chased security, times I followed opportunity, and honestly, times I wasn't sure what I was doing, just moving forward because standing still felt worse. But looking back now, in my 40s, I'm beginning to see a pattern, a rhythm, a through line. Not always neat, definitely not linear, but mine. And if there is one thread that's held through it all, it is this. I never lost hope. Even in the messiest moments, I kept choosing to believe that change was possible. And I took action again and again to reshape what didn't feel right. So let's take a few minutes this week, journal, walk, sit quietly, whatever works for you, and ask yourself these questions. What identity has my career shaped in me, and does it still reflect the woman I am today? How did the career path I chose or landed shape how I see myself? Where did I feel most alive in my work? Where did I start to disappear? When I remove the masks of survival and performance, how do I truly feel about the work I do each day? If fear, judgment, and obligation were stripped away, what kind of work would I move toward now? What small shifts or bold leap would bring me closer to work that honors the woman I am becoming? In a world where health is never guaranteed, how can I honor and cherish the simple gift of being able to show up, to work, to live fully that day? And finally, do I see myself doing the same thing I'm doing now as my career for the next 20 years? Wow, this was a lot to unpack for one day. We don't need to figure it all out today, just to start the reflection and conversation. Remember, our career was never supposed to define us. It was only ever meant to serve us. We are the author of our next chapter, and the story we write now can be truer, freer, and more breathtaking than anything we have lived before. We are more than our job, more than our paycheck, more than our calendar full of back-to-back meetings or endless errands. We are women in our 40s with experience, wisdom, humor, and the power to choose again. And whatever the next chapter of our work life looks like, may it be rooted in truth, not titles, in alignment, not obligation, and in true us. So, what's your take on today's conversation? I would love to hear how this conversation lands for you. Next episode, we will keep peeling back the layers of who we are, this time by looking at the roles we have carried as daughter, sister, best friend, partner, mother, and a woman. Let's keep this beautiful unraveling going, ladies. Can't wait to see you then.